Hello, Warrior Nation. This is Nile Harris, and welcome to the Nile Speaks blog. Today, we are going to have real talk about entrepreneurship. Hi, before we get started with real talk about entrepreneurship, I hope that you would take a moment to connect with me at I'm Nile Harris on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and also on LinkedIn at Nile Harris. And take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel too, please, if you don't mind. And today's topic, I'm doing things a little differently because I'm feeling some kind of way about entrepreneurship these days. It's 2021, and I don't know when you're watching this, but we are just coming out of 2020. And unless this is 2060, you know that 2020 was kind of a big deal. A lot of people lost their jobs, but also a lot of people found other ways to support themselves and to start packaging their expertise and selling it as a business and either through freelancing or consulting. But I'm seeing lots and lots of memes about how entrepreneurship is so wonderful. And I know that there are a lot of people out there struggling with the notion of entrepreneurship and starting from scratch is what they feel like, starting something new. They bills and things are just weighing on their minds. And if you are like me and you're scrolling through social media and you're seeing people on the beach, or you're seeing people in expensive luxury cars or with these expensive bags or expensive suits or whatever, and they're like, look, I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship will make you a millionaire. If you're like me, you're looking at these things and thinking to yourself, whatever. What is this? And so I wanted to come on here today and have real conversation about what entrepreneurship is and how it feels, because this is just one of those weeks where I'm just kind of feeling it. And normally, I'm talking about different ways to be productive or different ways to structure a business or do things and give you tips and tricks around that. Because I'm a coach, I'm also a business advisor. And as a coach, I like to have real conversations with my clients. This is how we get to the breakthrough moments. And I felt like if I'm feeling this struggle, other people are feeling this struggle. And so I'm going to treat you all like my clients. And we're going to kind of have a little mini coaching session and have real talk around entrepreneurship. And what do I mean by real talk? Well, let's start with the fact that entrepreneurship is not a meme. It's not just on trend, right? It's so on trend. Now, there is a trend going that people are moving toward owning their own destiny, either through consulting or freelancing. We see through different research and reports that more and more people are joining into like the gig economy, whether they're driving Lyft or Uber, whether they're going on websites and being hired for specific skills. They are taking control of their destiny and putting themselves out there. Some did it because, hey, I always wanted to run my own business. Some are kind of like me, a little bit accidental entrepreneurs. So in 2011, I was unexpectedly laid off from my company. And no rhyme really or reason, frankly, but I knew I never wanted to feel that way again. And I immediately started doing some freelance work and landed a 5-figure contract right out the gate by working with my contacts. And it was basically doing what I had been doing for this company. Not only was I paid more than what I would do for this company, I was more fully utilized in terms of my skill set. And I realized I have value in worth in the job that I have. I'm doing my job in terms of what the job description is. When I was freelancing and consulting, I'm a Swiss Army knife. I'm a multi-potentialite. I'm a unicorn, and that has value to the company. And so I realized that I have the expertise that I could rely on myself. And I knew that I didn't ever want to feel like that again. So I actually started my company in 2011, and I did go back to work for a major company, but I always kept my side hustle. But I'm going to come back to that. Let's talk about these entrepreneurship memes and on trends. Like if you're scrolling through Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn and you're seeing these Maserati posts, they're probably rented or they're probably from Maserati's site. Who knows? But let's talk about what's behind the photos. Let's talk about what's behind Instagram pictures. Entrepreneurship can be lonely. Right. And let's talk about what I mean by entrepreneurship. Some people are like, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a freelancer. If you are generating your own income, you are an entrepreneur at some level. The word entrepreneur used to frighten me a little bit. I'm like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I just do some things on the side and make money. And people are like, you're an entrepreneur. Do you pay taxes on that? Now, you don't have to be a full-time entrepreneur, but I'll get to that. But there are days when it's lonely because it's just me doing this work. But I, interact with clients or things like that. But when it's me putting together, working on my website, or even if I'm working with a vendor or working with a client, it's me driving everything forward right now at this point. At some point, I'll get to a point where I might have a partner or I might have multiple people who work for me. But right now, sometimes it can be lonely. And that can be frustrating because you might come up against a challenge that you're not quite sure how to deal with it. I was putting an ad in Facebook and I kept getting this warning about how my site doesn't have pixels, but it does. I know that it does. And I kept clicking on things to try to figure out like, what do I need to do? And I finally figured I set a timer for myself for 30 minutes of focused time. And I figured out what this error message was about and how to fix it. And it's moments like those. It's rarely the big moments that make us be like, forget this. It's these little moments that build up over time and we just get frustrated. And it's frustrating because you can't find clients. And it's also might be frustrating because you feel like everybody in the world is offering what you offer. And why would people want to work with you? Why would people want to click on your ad? Why would people want to read your blog or watch your video? Right? You have all of these things and you're just second guessing yourself every day, every day. You want to put something out on LinkedIn or you want to put something out on Instagram and you're focused on all of the likes. And all of that can be emotionally draining, right? I know I feel that way. And sometimes at the end of the day, I know I need to work more and I want to work more. And it's just emotionally draining. So when we're looking at these memes or we're feeling like entrepreneurship is on trend, it's not. Entrepreneurship actually founded a lot of companies here, and social media has made it seem like it's the in thing to do when this has been around for a very long time. It has always taken a lot of work. It has always been lonely. It has always been frustrating and people stuck with it. Social media is sort of just magnifying different aspects of entrepreneurship. But the good thing about social media is that it makes it easier to become an entrepreneur, depending on what it is that you're doing. If you're manufacturing product, if you're a coach like I am, if you're a business advisor, if you are a consultant, it helps you to get your message out there, which is great because before social media, you kind of only had the avenue of word of mouth or in your network or things like that. So social media does make things easier, but we just need to ignore that sort of magnification of that it's sexy and the in thing to do. It has always been a thing and it will actually continue to be a thing. Right now, about a third of the US workforce works for themselves. That's expected to increase. That was pre-pandemic. Now, post-pandemic, it's actually expected to increase more, especially since women were leaving the workforce at higher rates during the pandemic. We might see a lot of those women return as business owners. Black women are the fastest growing demographic of business owners. So let's keep our eye out there, but it's not something that's on trend. It's been happening and there is support out there for those of us who are pursuing it. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, real talk, is that it can be a pathway to professional freedom, whether you're consulting or freelance, independent consulting. You decided to build an app, you decided to start a company, you're manufacturing a device, or you're creating software. Whatever it is, it can be a pathway to professional freedom. And what I mean by that is when we get into larger companies, and I don't know how you felt, but a lot of times I felt that I was in a box, and almost as if I was declaring a major in college. You can be this or you can be this, and you be that until we fire you, lay you off, you quit, or you retire. And there didn't seem to be a lot of possibilities for people who were interested in other possibilities. And I talk about this in another post where I talk about what plan A is versus your personal plan B, C, or D. And plan A is basically you go to school, you get good grades, you graduate, maybe you go to college, you get a good job, you work that job, you keep your mouth closed, your head down, and then you retire, and then you just sit around and wait. So that's sort of plan A. And plan A was not meant to benefit us. It was meant to benefit from us. Plan A benefits those who created plan A. Not to say that we don't benefit from plan A, but we're not meant to benefit the most from it. And so what I mean by the pathway to professional freedom is that you get to be who you choose to be. I choose to be a coach and a business advisor because I'm taking all of my experiences over 20 years and 8 years of formal education, and I'm teaching people and showing them how to do business basics, right? What is marketing? What is branding? What is communications? How do you do financial modeling? I'm teaching them all of these basics. So when they go out into the world and they're like, I want to start a business, you wear all the hats in your business, but you don't know how to do everything. And I know how to do a lot because I studied general management. So this was my pathway to sort of professional freedom to express myself professionally. It's not an all or nothing. And I think that there's this message out there that you're either an entrepreneur or you're working for somebody else, and there's also a little bit of shaming of people who want to be employees. You can be employed at a company and be working at your side hustle. I read a Harvard Business Review article, I think it was last week, that said people should have multiple pathways and should have multiple interests. So if you get laid off, like I did, or like a lot of Americans did, you have other avenues to fulfill financial obligations and even to fulfill that professional freedom. It's not all or nothing. You don't have to be one thing or the other. If you like being employed, I actually did like being employed. I liked having a job where I felt fulfilled, where I contributed, that sparked joy. And I also liked doing my own side hustle. And it's a good thing that I continued doing my side hustle because one year I decided I just wasn't getting where I wanted under someone else. So I started and I went full-time working for myself. And the other aspect about entrepreneurship is that it may be a pathway to wealth. And I know a lot of people say it's a pathway to financial freedom. And people say, well, you can't get to financial freedom by working for someone else. I would argue that you can get to financial freedom by working for someone else if you are investing your money wisely. If you invest in assets that pay you, if you invest in stocks or other sort of investments that will pay you, you can reach financial freedom if you're doing it very well, and you have a plan. So I don't want to say, I kind of feel like that's just this statement where you can't do it. And you can't necessarily reach financial freedom by working for yourself either, because if you work for yourself, you rely on yourself to bring in income. And that's also where you need a plan, where you are creating products and services that will pay you passive income. So you have more opportunity to create that wealth. You have more avenues to generate financial freedom because you own your business and you have multiple ways to create passive income for yourself. If you look at some of the wealthiest people, they have multiple streams of income. They have multiple avenues for investment. They are not one thing. And we need to be looking at that because they don't have plan A. They have plan B, C, D, all the way down to Z. And the rest of us need to be having multiple plans. And when we think about what entrepreneurship is and we're having real talk about it, it's a lot of hard work, but you're going to do the work anyway. Why not do some of that work for yourself? Why not? Why are you killing yourself 50, 60 hours at a job? Do 50 hours at a job and then leave time for yourself in the evenings or on the weekends to do work for yourself. That's actually might pay you back. Cause like I said, if you get laid off from your job, you can switch into your side hustle and blow that up and make that a primary hustle. But let's look at those avenues, right? So it can be a pathway to financial freedom. Potentially, it can be a pathway to wealth, but it's definitely a pathway to professional freedom. Lastly, here are the things that I want us to do when we are feeling like just, right? So first thing I want us to do is just take a breath. Take a breath and stop comparing, get off the Instagram, get off the TikTok, get off all of it, get off LinkedIn, stop comparing yourself to where other people are because people don't necessarily televise their struggle. Even though I did actually talk about how frustrating this Facebook ad I was putting together was, I'm not necessarily going on LinkedIn all of the time. I am authentic about like some of the struggles I have, but people who are posting all these pictures about, oh, this is great. And I'm making all this money and I generate all this money for my clients and they talk about the struggle, but there's almost sort of this storied way of talking about the struggle. People aren't always talking about their real struggles, and we need to stop comparing. Take a break. Don't stop. And when I say take a break, take a week, take a vacation, or look at your plan. Is your plan too aggressive? Pull it back a little bit, but don't stop forward progress. Forward progress is still progress. So if it takes you 3 weeks to do something that you thought would take you 3 days, that's fine. Take a break or slow down, but don't stop. The next thing is remember why you're doing this. I always tell people you need to know your why because it's going to drive you forward. As a warrior, I call the why the warrior's quest. And it's what we're put on this earth to do. And on those days where if you're like me, you're just sitting in front of the computer screen and you're just staring blankly because you have so much to do and you just don't know how you're going to get it all done. And you just feel like, I have so much to do. I don't know where to start. And then you feel paralyzed. And I have to take a step back and remember my why is to do good in the world by helping do-gooders do good in the world. And then I just focus on one thing that I can get done. And usually that one thing leads to 2 or 3 other things getting done, but just taking a step forward on one thing. And the next thing I want us to do is ask for help. Just ask for help. I don't know how to do this. Can somebody please help me? There are so many free resources out there. I actually volunteer my time as a business advisor as well, and people will reach out and ask for help. What I will say is when you reach out and ask for help, know what you're asking for help on. Don't just show up and be like, I don't know what to do. Have an idea of what you want to focus on and what you want to talk about, what you're trying to solve for. And you will find that there are people who are willing to talk to you and kind of talk you through things, but ask for help. And then celebrate the wins. I don't see enough people doing this. Celebrate our wins. When I figured out that Facebook ad, I literally did a happy dance for about 3-4 minutes. Literally stood up, turned on some music, did a happy dance because that was frustrating as I don't know what. So I had to do a happy dance. I just did a happy dance. That was it. And self-care. I have self-care Sundays. Sometimes I miss out on self-care Sundays because I'm doing my nails, doing my facial. And some days like self-care Sunday got a little out of control and I have to do a facial and I got to do my nails and I got to do, because now I can't go out into the world and get these things done. And so some Sundays, self-care is just sitting in a chair. That's cool. So that's it. That was the real talk I wanted to have. And I would love to hear from you guys on the real talk and the real issues and real challenges that you have around entrepreneurship and freelancing and consulting. And how do you get it all figured out? And just know this, you are not starting from zero. You are not starting from scratch. You're starting differently. You're choosing differently. Everything you have ever learned is still here. You may have lost a title. You may have lost a paycheck, but you did not lose the knowledge that you can now monetize and get paid more than you were where you were at, because you're getting paid at your company to a title, to a job description, but your value is actually probably 2 to 3 times what you're getting paid for because you have more knowledge, right? So I need us to dig deep and think about all these things around entrepreneurship. But I would love to hear from you and about entrepreneurship and the struggles you've had, and let's have a conversation about it, and let's get away from these memes, right? It's not a memeable thing. Entrepreneurship and freelance consulting, all of it, it's a real thing, and it comes with some real emotions, some real struggles, but it also comes with some really great highs. I'm Nile Harris. Thank you for joining me on Nile Speaks blog. Please take a moment to follow and connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at I am Nile Harris. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Nile Harris, and be sure to follow me on YouTube. Check out my website at IamNileHarris.com if you are interested in my coaching and business advising programs. I also have a Warrior Jump School, which is a library of on-demand courses on different business basics. I will catch you back here next time, Warrior.